Before we begin our new video, just want to say Merry Christmas from Full Time Design.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Alright, with that said and done, hope you'll stick with us in the new year, but we're going to go back to it now. I'm going to do a video that was planned originally when Full Time Design opened. It was going to be the first software comparison that we were going to do, and it's between Photoshop, Lightroom, or Photoshop and Aperture. You can include Pixelmator in this if you want to, but you don't really need to. Pixelmator is pretty much the same as Photoshop in features and what it can do. But take it or leave it, we're just going to use Photoshop for this example. I'm often asked, especially when I was operating Iceberg Creativity, what the difference is between Lightroom and Aperture and Photoshop. The gist of it is, Lightroom and Aperture are pretty much photo management software, but with really advanced features. Think of them as professional versions of iPhoto. They also can handle raw image formats. Now, I do believe iPhoto does this now, and if it doesn't, I'm pretty sure someone has an add-on that you can get for to do this. But if you're going to working with raw images and you have a professional camera, like say for example a Canon Digital Rebel, a Sony Alpha or Nikon D90 or above, you're going to want one of these applications. Now, by all means, you can use Photoshop and Pixelmator for your editing. But personally, I like to use, when I'm working with images like that, I don't want to be cutting them up in Photoshop. Photoshop, you can think of Photoshop as destructive editing, but not completely destructive editing, especially with the advent of CS4 and probably with CS5, they're going to add more even non-destructive features. But when you're in Photoshop, it's layer-based. When you're in Aperture and Lightroom, it's not layer-based, it's purely adjustment-based. Now, you can turn off all adjustments, you can add, take away, and continuously edit them. But in Photoshop, you couldn't really do this up until CS4. Now you have what's called smart filters, and you can turn off adjustments, add adjustments, and keep re-editing them. But generally, when you look at Photoshop and you use Photoshop for photos, it's generally perceived as destructive editing. Once it's done, that's pretty much done, unless you've saved to PSD. But layers can drastically affect other layers, as in Aperture, you can't really do that. It's much easier, and it's a much quicker workflow than if you're using Photoshop. Now, one thing that I have been asked, is it worth buying both of them? Think about it. When you're going out and buying a nice camera, a Sony Alpha or a Canon Rebel, really sit down and think, okay, will I need Photoshop? Will I need Aperture? Will I need both of these at the same time? Really think about that, because you don't want to spend upwards to $1,300 on both of these pieces of software and then only use maybe one of them. If you're only going to be doing photo adjustment, and you're not going to be, doing photo manipulations and really adding in effects, don't bother buying Photoshop. Either the basic or extended version, don't bother. Just stick with Lightroom or Aperture. If you have a Mac, I highly recommend buying Aperture. I use it. Terry, I know, has a MacBook and a MacBook Pro, or MacBook Pro and a Mac Pro, but he chooses to use Lightroom because it's what he's used to. But I personally use Aperture because, well, it integrates with the Finder, and it's extremely powerful. I can't wait for the third version, but as with Apple, who knows when that'll be available. I know for a fact right now, Lightroom's newest beta is actually publicly available, and you can try it out. I've tried it. It's more of an under-the-hood improvement, but it's still really good. There are, this is the strange thing, there are both demos available, 30-day trials. I do believe, actually, besides iWork, Aperture is the only product they offer that has a trial version. Final Cut and Logic do not have trial versions of their software. So if you want to, just try their demos before you even buy them. You can try the demo of Photoshop, Aperture, Lightroom, see if you need them both. The features are pretty much full-on in Photoshop, even if it's not purchased. There are a few things you can't do, but it's not really limited. So that's pretty much the difference between them. It's not much of a difference, it's just it needs to be explained what it is. If you're only working with raw images and all you want to do is make adjustments, keep with Aperture and Lightroom. If you really want to go beyond that, go with Photoshop. Do you really need both at the same time? If you're a graphic designer and a photographer, yes. If you're just a photographer, no. I strongly suggest, or I'd anticipate you don't need both. I personally need both. Terry needs both. But our buddy Ryan, he only needs one. He's more of a Flash person than a Photoshop person, and Illustrator too. But yeah, when it comes down to it, if you're just a photographer, yeah, stick with those two. If you're a photographer and a graphic designer, make the better choice and go with Photoshop. You'll probably be happy, but most photographers will be happier just with Aperture or Lightroom. And that's pretty much all for this this webisode, guys. Nothing really more advanced to tell you. It's just a basic key differences, you know, and they're a bit cheaper too. Photoshop, as I said earlier, can cost $600 to $1,000. Aperture and Lightroom are around $200 each. I know for a fact Aperture's $199. I think Lightroom is either $229 or $299. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's pretty much all, guys. You know, we'll have a new episode coming up soon where Terry is going to install the RAM in his MacBook Pro, and we'll have a video in probably next week, something with video editing, and you can look forward to that. And then there will be a video of Terry installing his new video card in his MacBook Pro, and he's extremely happy about that. So look forward to that. Oh, his Mac Pro, sorry, Mac Pro. Actually, we could do the hard drive video on the Mac Pro, Terry. MacBook Pro. You get a new hard drive?
Yeah.
Do that too. Do that with the RAM. Yeah, that's a good idea. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.
Merry Christmas again.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. There will be a video. There'll probably be 2 videos before the new year comes, so look forward to them. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great evening and a great weekend.